Hey Knicks fan, it's been a while since I dropped a video. Thank you guys for tuning in. I wanted to drop another video before preseason began, and I wanted to recap what happened with draft, summer league, and also previous season, and then also talk a little bit about what's gonna happen this season. And so, obviously, we drafted three great rookies, but I want to talk about two of them. Wanted to talk about Grimes and McBride. And McBride, both of them are very hard-nosed defenders. They don't give up. They're very dogged, extremely competitive, and both of them are very good shooters as well. And so they have a little bit to work on the offensive game in terms of being able to drive to the basket. But aside from that, there's a lot to like about these two rookies. I got a chance to see them up and close when I went to summer league this summer over in Las Vegas, and they were very impressive. They're very hard, like I said, hard nosed defenders. They don't give up, very competitive, and and that's they love playing defense. And you could just tell the way they play. We also had Obi Toppins and Emmanuel Quickly in his summer league. And this summer league, the plan was to have Emmanuel Quickly run point guard and get him as much reps as possible at the point guard, and then also have Obi top and just get up as many shots as he wanted to get. And so it looks like those were two of the main plans for summer league. And it looks like they definitely accomplished that. Emmanuel Quickly averaged about 8 assists a game, 7 or 8 assists a game during summer league. However, I felt like when he was running point guard, the offense tend to the ball tend not to move very well when he was running point guard, and things kind of bogged down a little bit. I felt the offense struggled a little bit when he was running point guard. As far as Obi Toppin, he played pretty well given the competition. He did what he had to do. He got up as many shots as he could, which was really good to get comfortable and work on his game. It was pretty much like practice for these guys. Especially after they've already experienced the NBA season, and this is their chance to just kind of like practice some of the things they've been working on during the off season. So it was really good to see Obi Toppin's performance. So Obi Toppin's, I felt like his field goal percentage could have been a little better. However, it wasn't terrible either. And so, like I said, he did what he had to do. It wasn't. Some people were very impressed by it. For me, I thought it was okay. He seemed comfortable, which was good. There were a few things I thought I wasn't that great. I wasn't that impressed by. Sometimes I felt like he goes a little too soft to the paint sometimes, and so there was a few times he got a shot blocked. And so I feel like he still needs to work on his drives to the paint. But either way, it was overall a good outing for Obi Toppin. And so now I want to talk a little bit about last season, how the season basically. I want to talk about the players that had the most impact on our performance last season, and of course the playoffs was a little disappointing because we were missing Mitchell Robinson, and then it was Julius Randle's first playoff performance, and he definitely looked scared. It was like definitely had that deer in headlights look after, especially after like especially game. I saw it game one and game two, but game three it just got really bad from game three on. And so, but I think part of that was the fact that we didn't have Mitchell Robinson, and so Mitchell just having that extra person there who's you know who, like who's that top dog, who's that alpha dog, not just to kind of help defend in a pick and roll, but also on the offensive end, someone who's a lob threat, kind of put a little pressure on the rim. I think just having that extra personality of someone who's like, okay, this dog is here with me, so it's I think that really helps a lot. And I think it would have helped. I think it would have helped with Julius Randle's psyche because I think it was all in Julius Randle's head. And if he just had, I think if he had like Mitchell Robinson there, I think it might have been a little different in my opinion. Um, you know, so, but that was that. It was good that they experienced it. I do feel like this year is going to be totally different. So we're going to see a totally different Julius Randle this year. I think he's going to work on his game. He's already, obviously he's already worked on his game. We're going to see a better RJ Barrett as well. We actually upgraded the roster. We brought in Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier, and so we're not going to have the same issue where they're going to hide Trey Young on Reggie Bullock, and Reggie Bullock doesn't know what to do with the ball. Well, once he gets it and Trey Young is on him. I mean, if they try that mess, I don't know. They can pick Kemba Walker or Evan Fournier. Which way, which tree limb do they want to get thrown off of? Does Trey Young want to get thrown off of, essentially? So they're not going to be able to hide him this time around. And so I think things are definitely going to be different this year if we actually meet them in the playoffs. But that's only if we have a healthy Mitchell Robinson. And so now let's get into get into the players that had the most impact on our season last year. Of course, the first player is Julius Randle. Julius Randle, his offensive rating was 110, defensive rating 108. And so the difference between the two is +2, which was really good. He gets a lot of credit for what he did on the offensive end, basically having such a high usage rate, not just creating for himself, but also being able to create for his other teammates. He averaged about, I think, maybe almost 7 assists last year, which was remarkable, which was great, you know. But it's really his defense. I don't think people talked enough about how good his defense was and how important it was. I think he was like, if you look at top defensive ratings in the league last year, I think he might be something like top 7 at least. And so he did an excellent job. He did a lot for the team, not just in the offense, but also on the defensive end. So that's why I have him in the top spot. But also, if you basically take his performance, offensive and defensive rating, and then look at the relationship between that and the and our point differential, the team's point differential for each of the games, Julius Randle, essentially his performance, these two ratings has the highest relationship with the team's performance on our squad. So it just so everywhere, any and everywhere you look at it, he was the most important player. Doesn't matter if you look at regression statistics, or if you just look at correlation statistics, or even if you just look at these defensive and offensive ratings that they have on basketballreference.com. Julius Randle was top dog for the team. So the second person was Mitchell Robinson. May surprise some people, but I feel like it's Mitchell Robinson. If you look at his analytics his advanced analytics are just absurd. Like just look at this here. His offensive rating is 129, defensive rating 105. Granted, it was on like 31 games, really 30 games, because the last game he got injured. I think he only played like 6 minutes before he got injured. So, but I mean, like it's +24. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you're seeing from freaking like from Nikola Jokic. I mean, like these are absurd numbers that Mitchell Robinson he has. And also, if you look at his defensive rating for each game, and you look at the relationship between that and the team's performance, is like it has actually there's a relationship there, and so. I'm not listing all the scores, the correlation scores on the on this slide here because I didn't want to get too much into statistics and bore people to death. But I just wanted to talk about the rankings for the most part. And so that's why I have Mitchell Robinson at number 2. And I swear if we had him for that Hawks series, I think it definitely would have been different. I still don't know if we would have won that series, but I definitely think, it would have been different. Definitely would not have been would not have lost the way we did. Basically, we only won one game. So that's why I have him up there. And then also, like, it makes you think, this is why, if you think about it, this is why they talk about Mitchell Robinson the way they do. Mitchell Robinson is always showing up on up and coming players lists, or players of the future, or like top young players and all that stuff. I mean, he shows up on these lists for a reason, and it's not just that. Even the way the front office talks about him, they go out of their way to talk about how great he's been, and and how the strides he's made, and how much of a professional he is. I mean, this team, they're not fools. The front office, they're not fools. I mean, like, you can't. Honestly, you should not be trying to trade Mitchell Robinson. In my opinion, with someone like this, I mean, this can be like him, RJ, and Julius. I mean, you got three guys like this on your team. I mean, like, you're going to be contenders in the East for the next 10 years. You're set. And so you don't want to, like, I mean, get rid of Mitchell Robinson. Well, because you got Nerlens Noel. Nerlens Noel, he played pretty okay, but I think people kind of get, they fall in love with block shots a little too much. Nerlens Noel does not control the paint like Mitchell Robinson does. Just look at when people drive in the paint, you know, when they drive in the paint, like how comfortable they are, right? When there's Noel. And just like switch that around when it's Mitchell Robinson patrolling the paint and people are trying to drive. They look so uncomfortable. They're hesitant, you know, and so it's a huge difference. Mitchell Robinson is just a way better defender. It's not even close. It's like, it's just he's on a way different level. So honestly, sometimes when people basically talk about who's better between Nerlens Noel or Mitchell Robinson, or when they talk about, oh, we can get rid of Mitchell because we got Noel. I mean, like the Hawks series didn't teach you anything. I mean, like, are you serious? So Mitchell Robinson, he's a rare talent. This is something that don't come around very often, and so that's why the front office talk about him the way they do, because they know they want to try to keep him, and if they can't keep him, they're gonna hope that they get something really valuable out of him, for him. But if they're smart, they would try to keep him, and I think that's what they're trying to do. But you just look at these analytics. That's why everybody talks about him the way they do, because these advanced analytics is just absurd on Mitchell Robinson. And this is just two of them, right? And so, and a 105 defensive rating, it's like that's insane. I mean, like that would have been, I think that would have ended up being like number two, but it was only like 31 games he played. But if he played all 60 games, I have a feeling like he would have maintained at least a 105. So he would have been basically vying with Rudy Gobert for Defensive Player of the Year. So when he talks about, oh, he wants Defensive Player of the Year, he's not that far off. It's just Rudy Gobert is the only person who's in front of him basically. Rudy Gobert, his like defensive rating is like 100. You know, so so he's almost there. He can get there. So it's not, when he talks about it, it's not all talk. The kids analytics, like the advanced analytics on Mitchell Robinson, just doesn't. It's just absurd. He's actually going to end up being a way better player than Rudy Gobert is. So it's amazing, and that's why I have him at number two. And so number three, I have Reggie Bullock. His offensive rating was 118, defensive rating was 111, and the difference was +7. And so with Reggie Bullock, I know basically, people were pretty sour on the performance in the postseason last year because they were able to hide Trae Young on him and he couldn't do anything with it. That was extremely disappointing. But however, it is what it is. And so, but he was second half of the season, he was very consistent for us. So that's why his offensive rating was as high as it is. And he has a defensive rating 111 is not bad. It's definitely not bad, and that's pretty decent. And so he did pretty well for us last year, especially second half of the season. Like I said, they were able to figure out how to use him better, and they started, playing, they started playing two-man games between him and Julius Randle. And the hope was people would double team Julius Randle less. I mean, sometimes they did a little bit, but most of the time they didn't. So they ended up just paying because Reggie Bullock, he was cooking off. In a lot of these games, it was just absurd. He was just like hit three threes in a row, and it's like there goes the game. And so, but he's that kind of shooter, and yeah, I do. I'm not sure. I'm back and forth on this, but now I'm starting to feel like I'm not sure. Like it was a good idea losing Reggie Block, in my opinion. If anything, you can have him come off the bench. I mean, we have so many players, but I do hope that we have someone who's going to be as consistent as he was in some of these games, especially when he would get hot and just go, you know, and just 3, 4 in a row. And so it's not gonna be easy to replace, but hopefully one of these young guys or one of these new guys are gonna be able to fill these shoes that he's left. And so some big, it's pretty big shoes to fill. It's like I know his playoff performance wasn't great, but he definitely had a huge impact on our team last year, especially the second half of the season. He was a big part of the reason why our offense started playing much better because they figured out how to use him better. And so the next person is Derrick Rose, and of course Derrick Rose is you can easily have him as the second best player, most important player, or second biggest impact. However, it's just the numbers just doesn't really bear that out. This is one of those things where sometimes, yeah, the numbers don't always tell you the whole truth, and but the reason why I went with just leaving him at fourth place was because he did change it. First of all, he did change the way we played, and he did change. Um, uh, he did basically improve our offense when he came over from Detroit. We instantly started playing much better, especially the second unit. And but the only problem with Derrick Rose, people have to keep in mind, he can only give you that like in maybe 15, 20 minutes at most, right? Once you start getting into 25 and 30 minutes every night for Derrick Rose, especially past, honestly, even 25 minutes, then you could have issues because he's older, he's got a lot of mileage on his legs. And so I think that's the reason why his numbers were a little muted. And so that's why I have him at number four in terms of like biggest impact. But he did kind of turn the season. He did turn the season around for the Knicks. Basically he took us from being a 500 ball club and just kind of like just kind of took us a little bit to a next level. And so, but it's just the fact that the coach is able to like use him in um, knew last season that he can use them only in these short spurts, and the way he used them actually worked, and it really did help us out. So it was very limited minutes, but it did have the impact, the necessary impact for us to like to win more ball games. And so so the next person I wanted to talk about is R.J. Barrett. RJ Barrett, I'm sure a lot of people are surprised that he's as low as he is. But if you look at the offensive rating is 105 and defensive rating is 111, so he's a -6. If you look at both numbers, right? And so, however, if you look at his performance, look both offensive and defensive rating, and you look at the relationship between that and the team's performance, still not as high as like the first these four, but it wasn't bad. It was like I think it was like point five five or something like that. And so that was the correlation score. When I ran multiple regression using offensive rating and defensive rating, and of course what I was trying to predict was we were trying to predict using um, the the team's point differential as a dependent variable. But so I mean, there's something there, right? And but the issue is like he just needs to get his efficiency numbers a little more up, especially within the 3 point line. So that's where he struggles a little bit, and also he struggles being consistent, right? And so there are games where he doesn't have a great game, the team wins, and then there's games where he'll have a great game and the team loses, and so that's what contributes to a lot of these, whether or not, um, there's going to be a relationship between like your performance and the team's performance. If you play well and the team wins, and that happens consistently, and you play poorly and the team loses, then yeah, you're going to develop a strong relationship between your performance and the team's performance, overall team performance. But right now, that's not the case. That's not what's happening. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing for the Knicks either. Actually, to tell you the truth, the better thing for the Knicks is you don't want to have one person where there's like a high correlation between your performance and the team's outperformance on the team or the outcome of the game. You actually want it to be the lower it is, the better. So that means you have a bunch of different players that step in when someone doesn't is like not having a great game, and so you want a very strong, well-rounded team. However, like R.J. Barrett, he still got about a long way to go. The fact that he didn't make top four in terms of impact on the numbers is not a terrible thing. He's only 21 years old, and his usage rate is he's got like the second highest usage rate on the team. I think I'm pretty sure he's the second highest, and so his assist numbers are pretty pretty good. He's a good play. He makes plays for his team, which is really good. And so he does a lot for the team. And so I think he's going to be much better in the future. And Elliot Burke, I did want to talk about him. He didn't make the cut, although he did. Obviously, Elliot Burke, there was he single-handedly won some games for us in the fourth quarter, especially second half of the season. But Alec Burke has a lot of. He was inconsistent a lot as well. You know, I remember early in the season, I think like the first two games he cooked off, and but the Knicks lost those first two games, and so it was kind of like that a lot for him. There's a lot of inconsistencies, like a lot of inconsistencies in his performance, especially early in the season. Second half of the season, he started playing much better, but I think the combination of the inconsistent play and and also the number of minutes he get, kind of he gets about, I think is a little less than 30 minutes a game, so that kind of contributes to the numbers having muted, like the numbers being muted, and so yeah, and so that's pretty much what we have. These are the guys that basically had the most impact on the team's performance last year, and I didn't look at Emmanuel quickly. I need to look at his numbers to see what it looks like, but to just to see. But I didn't run the numbers on quickly. So once I do that, I may update this list and just do an update video. And so we do have two new players. We have Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier. I looked at Kemba Walker's numbers when he was with Celtics last year, and him and Jason Tatum had really strong relationship. Their performance had like a strong relationship. Um, was closely tied to the team's performance as well. And so it's really interesting. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens this year. He's a very good, then if Thibodeau can figure out how to use him efficiently, and he definitely also has to play better defense than he did at Boston. Then if Thibodeau can figure it out, I think we're going to do really well this year. So like I said before, hell with jumping out of the window. Somebody give me a parachute, get me on the C-130. I always wanted to go to jump school anyway, so I think I think they go top three in the East this year, in my opinion. I think they make top three in the East. Obviously, I don't know if I said it before, but Tom Thibodeau is a kind of coach. He takes regular season very seriously, and his team is always prepared. And so because of that preparation, it's like they're gonna catch a lot of teams sleeping early, and so they're gonna. I think they're gonna start out to a very hot start, and they're just gonna kind of like keep it going. And I think they're gonna end up like being top three in the East. And the good thing about that too is like if they basically really get off to a hot start and have a great season, and they're like, let's say top two or three in the East, that means like they have a pretty weak first round matchup, right? And so we're not going to have the same thing as last year where we had to meet the Hawks in the first round. Honestly, by the time I remember the last game we played the Hawks, and this is, obviously, at this point McMillan already took over. But I remember that last game, I was like, oh man, this Hawks team is scary. I knew they were coming, and I knew they were going to be a problem for us if we met them in the playoffs. Honestly, I was hoping we would meet like the Sixers, you know, over the Hawks, because I just, we it was like they just have so much on the offensive end, and then we didn't have Mitchell Robinson, and so it was like, it's like how are we going to defend the pick and roll without Mitchell Robinson? Nerlens Noel is not his strong suit. He's not a great rebounder, and he gives you nothing on the offensive end either. He's not really a lob threat, and so it was really tough going last year. But this year, I think things are going to be different, especially if we can get a healthy Mitchell Robinson. I definitely think the Knicks put it together, and we're definitely going to be top three in the East, in my opinion. And so, hey, tell me what you guys think about this list. Right? Make some comments below. What would you like to see different about the list, and what do you guys think about Mitchell Robinson? About his future. So let me know. Comment below. I'll definitely respond. Thank you guys. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.